Hello. My girlfriend tattooed another man's name on her body while living in my house rent-free. She said it was about spiritual autonomy, so I decided to show her what real autonomy looks like when you're not financially supported by someone else. My name is Alex. I am 31 and I work as a maintenance electrician in Madison, Wisconsin. My schedule is pretty routine because most of my work is tied to commercial buildings that need things fixed quickly but predictably. Most days I start early, deal with electrical issues in a handful of properties around the city, and get home before the evening rush. I bought my small house about 4 years ago after saving for a long time while doing overtime jobs. It is not fancy, but it is solid and paid for mostly by my own work. I like having control over my space and keeping things simple. My girlfriend is Lily. She is 26 and works as a stylist at a salon not far from downtown Madison. We have been together for a little over 2 years. About 9 months ago, she moved into my house. We never set up a formal rent arrangement because Lily said stylist income could be unpredictable depending on appointments and tips. I handled the mortgage, utilities, and groceries while she mostly covered her own personal expenses and occasionally brought home takeout or random things for the house. At the time, I did not think much about it. I was doing well financially and I cared about her, so letting her live there without paying rent did not feel like a big sacrifice. For the most part, our day-to-day life was normal. I worked early mornings. She worked later shifts at the salon. We would meet up at home in the evenings, cook something simple, and watch whatever show we were halfway through that week. Lily has always had a strong personality. She likes talking about personal independence and self-expression. Sometimes it came out in long explanations about identity and autonomy that sounded like something she picked up from social media discussions. Most of the time, I just nodded and moved on because arguing about abstract ideas never seemed productive. The first strange moment happened about 3 weeks ago when she came home late after going out with coworkers from the salon. She was in a very confident mood that night, and everything she said had this slightly sharp tone to it. While I was finishing a work order on my laptop at the kitchen table, she started talking about personal freedom and reclaiming control over her own body. Then she casually mentioned she had booked a tattoo appointment for the next afternoon. That alone was not unusual. Lily already had a few tattoos on her arms and ankle. What made me pause was the way she explained it. She said the tattoo was about proving that no one had authority over her choices or her body. At the time, I just shrugged and told her that if it made her happy, then she should go ahead. Looking back now, that conversation was the last calm moment before things started getting weird in a way I could not ignore anymore. The next afternoon, Lily went to her tattoo appointment while I was at work. I barely thought about it during the day. Electrical panels and broken lighting systems tend to keep my attention pretty focused. By the time I finished the last job and drove back across Madison, it was already close to 6. When I walked into the house, Lily was already home and sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. She had that same confident energy from the night before, like she had just proven some kind of point. I asked how the appointment went, and she said it was great. Then she said the artist did exactly what she wanted and that it felt empowering. That word stuck out to me. She stood up and lifted the side of her shirt a little to show me the tattoo on her ribcage. At first, my brain did not even process what I was looking at. I thought maybe it was some kind of script design or abstract word. Then I read it. It was a name, not my name. The tattoo clearly said Nicholas in clean black lettering. I stood there for a second just staring at it while my brain tried to catch up with what was happening. I asked her calmly who Nicholas was. She rolled her eyes like the question itself annoyed her. She said Nicholas was someone she had a deep spiritual connection with years ago, and the tattoo was meant to represent personal growth and emotional independence. I asked if Nicholas was an ex-boyfriend. She said yes, but immediately started talking about how people put too much weight on labels and ownership in relationships. The whole explanation sounded like something she had prepared ahead of time. What made the situation stranger was how completely unconcerned she seemed about my reaction. She talked about it like she had just dyed her hair a different color. I reminded her that she was living in my house and had just tattooed another man's name on her body. Her response was that her body was her space and that true partners respect autonomy without trying to control someone's choices. The tone she used made it sound like I was the unreasonable one for even reacting. At that point, I did not argue. I just nodded and went to the kitchen to start dinner. But while I was standing there cutting vegetables, I realized something important. Lily kept using the word autonomy. What she really meant was freedom without consequences. And that only works when someone else is paying the bills. I did not confront Lily again that night. I finished making dinner, we ate, and the conversation moved to random things like appointments at the salon and a new client she thought might become a regular. On the surface, everything felt normal again, which almost made the tattoo situation feel surreal. But I was paying attention now. Lily kept acting like the conversation from earlier had already been resolved in her favor. Every time the topic drifted anywhere close to relationships or respect, she would casually repeat the same phrases about autonomy and personal freedom. At one point, she even said something that stuck with me. She said the problem with most relationships is that people treat partners like landlords who get control just because they provide something. The irony of hearing that while she was sitting in the living room of the house I pay for was hard to ignore. I did not respond. I just listened. The next morning, my alarm went off at 6 like usual. I got ready for work and walked into the kitchen where Lily was making coffee. She was wearing a loose shirt, and the edge of the tattoo was visible when she reached up to grab a mug. Seeing the name again made the whole situation feel more real. I asked her one more direct question before leaving. I asked why she thought it was appropriate to tattoo another guy's name while living with her current boyfriend. She sighed like I was being exhausting. Then she launched into another explanation about how mature partners understand that past connections still shape who people become. According to her, the tattoo was not about Nicholas as a person anymore. It was about honoring a phase of her life and proving she was not controlled by anyone's expectations. The way she framed it made it sound almost philosophical. But one thing she never addressed was the obvious point. She had made a permanent decision involving another man while depending on me for a place to live. Before I left for work, she added one more comment that made things clearer. She said if I truly respected her autonomy, then I would not make it into a problem. That sentence actually helped me a lot, because it finally made me realize something simple. Lily believed autonomy meant freedom from criticism. What I believe is much simpler. Everyone gets autonomy. They just do not get insulation from the consequences that follow it. Over the next couple of days, I stopped reacting emotionally and started paying attention to the logistics of the situation instead. When you work maintenance like I do, you get used to solving problems by breaking them down into practical pieces. If a system stops working, you do not argue with it. You look at the wiring and figure out where the connection actually is. The connection here was pretty simple. Lily talked a lot about independence, but her living situation depended almost entirely on me. I paid the mortgage, the electricity, the water, the internet, and most of the groceries. The house was in my name and always had been. Lily's income from styling covered her personal spending, but she had never contributed to the actual cost of living in the house. Again, that had been my choice. I had offered it because I thought we were building a long-term relationship. Now I was seeing the situation differently. That weekend, Lily had 2 days off from the salon. She spent most of Saturday afternoon posting pictures online from her tattoo appointment. I noticed because she kept laughing at comments from her phone while sitting across from me in the living room. At one point, she even showed me one of the pictures. It was a close-up of the tattoo with a caption about reclaiming personal identity. I did not comment. Later that evening, she made another remark that helped clarify her mindset even more. She said some people in the comments were surprised that she had a boyfriend and still got the tattoo. Then she laughed and said those people clearly had outdated ideas about relationships. According to Lily, secure men do not feel threatened by symbols from someone's past. I asked her a simple question. I asked whether Nicholas knew he had just been turned into permanent body art. She shrugged and said maybe he would find out someday. Then she said something that made the situation cross from strange into openly disrespectful. She said if Nicholas ever saw it, he would probably appreciate the gesture. That was the first moment where I realized something important. Lily was not just defending the decision. She was actually proud of it. And the more she talked about autonomy, the clearer it became that she expected the benefits of independence while continuing to live inside the safety net someone else provided. After that weekend, I stopped debating the philosophy of autonomy with Lily. There was no point arguing abstract ideas with someone who already believed they were automatically right. Instead, I started adjusting the practical side of things. The first change was small. Normally, I handle groceries for the house every Sunday evening. I usually buy enough for both of us for the week since my schedule makes it easier for me to stop at the store after work. That Sunday, I only bought food for myself. Nothing dramatic. Just the things I personally eat during the week. Eggs, chicken, vegetables, some basic stuff for lunches. When Lily opened the fridge Monday morning, she noticed right away. She asked where the rest of the groceries were. I told her I only picked up what I needed. She looked confused and asked what I meant by that. So I explained it calmly. I said that since she valued autonomy so much, it made sense for her to manage her own food and personal expenses instead of relying on me to automatically provide everything. She stared at me for a few seconds like she was trying to decide if I was joking. Then she said that was petty. According to her, groceries were just part of living together, and my reaction to the tattoo was turning into a punishment. I told her it was not punishment. It was simply aligning reality with the independence she said she wanted. She rolled her eyes and grabbed her purse before leaving for work. As she walked out the door, she said I was overreacting and making drama out of something symbolic. But the interesting thing was what happened over the next few days. Lily kept expecting things to operate the way they always had. Tuesday night, she asked what I planned to cook for dinner. I told her I was making something for myself, but she was welcome to use the kitchen if she wanted. Wednesday, she asked if I had paid the internet bill yet. I told her yes, but that going forward we should probably split shared services if we were both using them. Each time I brought it back to the same word she liked so much: autonomy. Because real autonomy means handling your own life, not just talking about it while someone else quietly carries the costs. By the end of the week, Lily's attitude started shifting from confident to irritated. The first few days, she treated the grocery situation like a temporary protest that I would eventually drop. She kept acting as if things would just reset back to normal. But I did not change anything. I continued buying food only for myself. I cooked dinner the same way I always had, just in smaller portions. When she asked about meals, I would simply say she was free to use the kitchen. At first, she started ordering takeout. 2 nights in a row, she had delivery brought to the house while sitting in the living room watching TV. Each time she made a point of saying things like, "I guess I will handle my own dinner then." I never argued with that statement because technically she was correct. By Thursday night, the tone changed. She asked me directly if I was planning to keep acting like this. I told her I was not acting like anything. I was just adjusting the household setup so that each of us handled our own needs. She said that was ridiculous because couples are supposed to support each other. That comment made me pause. So I asked her a simple question. I asked if tattooing Nicholas's name on her body while living rent-free in my house counted as supporting the relationship. She immediately got defensive. According to her, the tattoo had nothing to do with our relationship, and I was intentionally twisting things to justify being controlling. That was interesting to hear because the entire week I had not told her what she could or could not do. I had only stopped automatically providing things. Friday morning, another small moment happened that really showed how used to the old system she had become. She asked if I could transfer her some money because her paycheck from the salon had been smaller that week and she needed gas. A few weeks earlier, I probably would have done it without thinking. This time I told her no. I reminded her that autonomy means managing your own finances. The silence after that answer lasted a lot longer than any argument we had earlier in the week. For the first time, it seemed like the word autonomy was starting to feel different when it applied to her instead of everyone else. By the next weekend, Lily's frustration finally turned into open anger. Saturday morning started tense almost immediately. She opened the fridge and realized again that most of the food inside was portioned for me. I meal prep because my shifts start early, so everything is organized in containers. She shut the fridge door hard and turned toward me. She asked if I was seriously going to keep doing this. I told her yes. That was when the argument started. She said I was being childish and petty over something symbolic. According to her, the tattoo had nothing to do with our relationship, and my reaction proved I was insecure. I reminded her calmly that she had chosen to tattoo another man's name on her body while living in my house without paying for anything. She immediately raised her voice and said her body had nothing to do with my house. Then she started repeating the same phrases again about autonomy and independence, but this time she was almost yelling them. At that point, the conversation stopped being philosophical. It turned into a real fight. She accused me of trying to control her. I told her I had not controlled anything. She had made every decision freely. What I had done was stop financially supporting someone who openly disrespected the relationship. That sentence pushed things over the edge. She said if I had a problem with her autonomy, then maybe I should not have asked her to live with me in the first place. So I told her something simple. I said she was right. If autonomy was that important to her, then she was completely free to live independently somewhere else. At first, she laughed like I was bluffing. Then I walked to the hallway closet, grabbed one of her suitcases, and set it on the floor in the living room. The house is in my name. She is not on the lease because there is no lease. I told her she had the rest of the afternoon to pack her things and figure out where she wanted to go. The The moment she realized I was serious, the entire mood changed. The anger was still there, but now there was something else mixed into it. For the first time since she got that tattoo, Lily looked genuinely shocked. It seemed like the idea of autonomy had sounded a lot better when it came with free housing. After I put the suitcase in the living room, the argument kept going for another few minutes, but the tone had changed. At first, Lily kept insisting I was overreacting. She said no reasonable person would throw someone out over a tattoo. She also kept repeating that I was trying to punish her for expressing autonomy. I did not argue anymore. I just told her the situation was simple. She had made it clear she wanted full independence. Living in my house, while depending on my money, did not match that idea anymore. For a while, she paced around the living room talking about how unfair the situation was. At one point, she even suggested we should take a few days to calm down before making any big decisions. That suggestion would have made sense a week earlier, but not after everything that had happened. So I repeated what I had already said. She needed to pack her things and figure out where she was going. Once she realized I was not changing my mind, the anger came back again. She started throwing clothes into the suitcase while complaining loudly about how immature I was being. Every few minutes, she would stop packing just to lecture me about relationships and emotional growth. I mostly stayed out of the way and let her do what she needed to do. Around 2 hours later, most of her things were packed into 2 suitcases and a couple of bags. She called a friend from the salon to come pick her up. While she waited near the door, she kept shaking her head and saying she could not believe I was ending a 2-year relationship over something symbolic. I told her the relationship had not ended because of the tattoo. It ended because she believed respect only went one direction. When her friend finally pulled into the driveway, she dragged the bags outside without saying much else. The last thing she said before getting into the car was that I would regret this once I realized how rare independent women are. Then the car drove away. And just like that, the house was quiet again. The first thing I did the next morning was block Lily's number. Not out of anger, just practicality. I had seen enough messy breakups between friends to know how quickly things turn into long message chains and late-night arguments that go nowhere. I did not want that. So before I even left for work, I blocked her number, removed her from social media, and closed that line of communication completely. After that, I went to work like any other Monday. Replacing a faulty breaker panel in an office building is actually a good way to keep your mind occupied. Electricity does not care about relationship drama. It either works or it does not. By the time I finished my shift and drove back to the house, the place felt noticeably different. Quieter. Lily had always filled the space with noise. Phone calls, music, random conversations while I was trying to cook dinner. Now the house was just calm again. That evening I walked through the rooms and checked if she had forgotten anything important. A few small items were left behind, but nothing major. Mostly things that could easily be replaced. For the first time in weeks, I felt like my environment made sense again. What I did not expect was that Lily would still try to reach out. 2 days later, one of my coworkers mentioned that someone had called the maintenance office asking if I was there. They had not given her my schedule, but they recognized the name. Apparently, Lily had tried to contact me through my workplace after realizing she was blocked. That confirmed I made the right choice. I was not interested in restarting the same argument over and over again. From my perspective, the situation had already been resolved. She wanted autonomy. Now she had it. And I finally had my house back. A few days after my coworker mentioned Lily trying to reach the office, I heard from her one last time anyway. She used a different number. The message came in late in the evening while I was sitting on the couch watching a game. It was short, but very clearly from her. She wrote that blocking her was childish and that mature people know how to communicate after a disagreement. I did not respond. Instead, I blocked that number too. That was the moment I realized the entire situation had become very simple. For weeks, Lily had framed everything through the lens of autonomy. Every decision she made was supposed to exist above criticism because it involved her identity or personal expression. But autonomy only works when someone is actually standing on their own feet. What she really wanted was freedom without responsibility. The tattoo itself was never the real issue. People make questionable decisions all the time. A tattoo can be covered, removed, or eventually laughed about. What mattered was the attitude behind it. She expected to make a decision that openly disrespected the relationship while continuing to live in my house, eat the groceries I paid for, and rely on the stability I built. When that support disappeared, suddenly the conversation about autonomy changed. Now it was about fairness and maturity. About a week after she moved out, I reorganized a few things around the house. I turned the spare room she used for clothes into a small workshop space where I keep tools and parts for side jobs. The place feels a lot more functional now. Every now and then I still think about the moment she showed me the tattoo. Not because I miss her. Mostly because it was such a perfect example of how people sometimes use big philosophical words to avoid simple realities. Autonomy is real, but so are consequences. And if someone wants complete independence, the most honest thing you can do is step aside and let them have it. Bye-bye.